We should be going live.
So he
We
said that
are now live. It really
every
every
time.
every time. Good evening. This is At Ease with Cia.
And Lashrecse, good evening, everyone. I apologize. Every time I think I have a minute more to get something in, it's like, no, we're live. So we're live and we're here. And first of all, happy Black History Month, day one of the month where we celebrate and amplify and uplift the voices of amazing Black leaders of the present and past. Today we had a beautiful, beautiful speech. We'll drop the link to that later on from Chairman Lamont Bagby of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus to kick off the Virginia Black History Month. And so you can look forward to the next few weeks of a number of Black Caucus members speaking or not.
And I heard Senator Locke's speech today was fire, talking about the Black family
Okay.
and what we need to be doing legislatively to protect it. So I got to go back and watch that because I was not able to see it, but heard it was fire as well.
So we'll drop the link to both of those down below here in a moment or so. But just really taking a moment to think about where Black history has been in the Commonwealth and where we are today. And we are going to rebuke in the name of Jesus anyone that tries to take or ruin our month. So we are asking you to join in with us in a bit of meditation that our Black History Month is positive, spirit filling, and motivational and inspirational.
Amen and Ashe. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'll leave it there.
But we had a good day, and I'm gonna go out of order because I want to get us hype. I want to talk about some things that passed today first. So, Delegate Aired, as you continue your journey to make this Commonwealth an even better place to live, work, raise a family, play, learn, all of that. Tell us about some stuff that passed today.
I'm excited because our legislation, House Bill 1990, which speaks to, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Can you hear my dog drinking water?
We
Because
can, but I mean, if we are made to invite people into our homes, whatever y'all hear is what y'all get.
I was
We
like,
love it.
why is it so loud? Anyway, so I'm so excited that we passed racial impact statements. And if anyone has followed our legislation from the past, you know that in 2020 we had demographic impact statements for all legislation, which would have given us the ability to really do a deeper dive into bills before we actually pass them. But what we did was scale it down a little bit this year, and we're focused specifically on criminal justice legislation. So the chair of courts of justice or the chair of the Senate Judiciary has the power, once it's passed, to now request up to 5 bills receive racial and ethnic impact statements. And that's because many times after you pass these criminal justice bills, they're on their way and they're done. And we don't know the impact, particularly on the Black and Brown communities, that they have until it's too late. And so the racial and ethnic impact statements will ultimately allow us to be deliberate and intentional about the bills that are passing and make sure in advance that they won't have adverse impacts. So, talk about being thorough, talk about being equitable and fair in the bill making process. This will go a long way in helping us to do that.
So, to start off, my Black History Month, House Bill 1890 just passed the House like just a little bit ago. And that is the Voting Rights Act of Virginia. That is a bill that I'm carrying, a complete and utter labor of love that we've been working on for about a year. And it is chief co-patrons by the Delegate Aird and also Chairwoman Juan Ward from Hampton and Kelly Converse Fowler from Virginia Beach for their work as well. If you'll remember just a little bit of history, If you'll remember, Delegate Ward was the one that stood up in 2011 and told people about themselves, about that gerrymandered map. And she had to stand up alone and took, people had a lot to say about what she did, but she said what was right. She said what was right for her. And she really stood up against a very powerful majority to voice that. So we wanted to make sure that she was working with us on issues of democracy. And then also Kelly Converse Fowler out of Virginia Beach has been working diligently to make sure that local elections are fair. And that is a part of the bill. So we'll drop a link to it. But we would be the first Southern state.
I was getting ready to say, if we could drop a bomb right now, like a Funk Flex bomb, because that's how major it is. I don't know if y'all know what Funk Flex bombs are, but anyway, it's like
I I
boom,
just
boom, boom.
we've been swimming in the weeds on this, and shout out to the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Shout out to the Advancement Project. Shout out to the NAACP, National Legal and Educational Defense Fund. Shout out to New Virginia Majority. We, I've been sitting at some tables with some pretty heavy hitters and making sure that not only are we going to do this, but we're going to do it right. And so it has literally been a learning experience for me to see how to get to where we want to go, make sure it's done right, and make sure it's also going to be a model for what other states can do. I know California has worked on this, New York has worked on this, but this is the first Southern state, and this is the first one of its kind in this way. And so it is a big deal. I don't want to really talk about how big of a deal it is until after it
No,
passes the Senate.
definitely.
No, until after it passes the Senate, because then I can breathe. But I will. We are learning and we are establishing better ways of telling our story. We will always credit the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And when Representative Karen Bass said that we have to be better at telling our stories, I do want to celebrate this moment that House Bill 1890 did pass the House, and also recognize that we got to get through the Senate. But today was a good day.
It's important for us to emphasize that although you make it look easy, you make it sound seamless, there is so much work that goes on behind the scenes, and everyone is not always supportive. Every step of the way, there are people putting up roadblocks to prevent this kind of major change and progress from happening. So, yeah, let's just take a minute and give you those roses, and we'll keep laying them out along the road until we get to the end. But yeah, a little bit of rose throwing is okay.
Appreciate you, sis. I mean, we are definitely still working on things. And then as soon as you feel good, we are in our meetings. And so right now I'm learning in our comments that House Bill 2325, which would have been oversight for the DOC, died in appropriations.
So let's talk about that.
I don't know what to say further, but it would have set up an ombudsman to oversee the things that are happening in our jails. It would have been a central place for families with those that are incarcerated to go to find out information. Chairman Patrick Hope put that up, and I was very supportive of it. I mean, I get communication from constituents that are incarcerated and their family all the time asking questions that we often do not get answers to. And so it is very disheartening that that was not able to go through on the appropriation side. So
That's
we'll
a
do some
little bit
investigation.
my 2 cents, because I do sit on the
Oh, yes.
Transportation and Policy Safety Subcommittee where this bill was heard earlier today. And I just want to make it clear that although the action was formally taken to table it, we did also add that we were putting language in the budget to ensure that not only does this get a study, but that also we work with independent third party partners in other states like the state of Washington that have set up these independent ombudsman offices to make sure we structure ours here in Virginia correctly. Because ultimately, we did not have the appropriate fiscal impact information. It was indeterminate. And we just want to make sure that when we do this, we do this right. And if you heard my comments during the committee, you know that I spent a lot of time with Chairman Hope and several other representatives and listening to employees that work at many of our Department of Corrections facilities. And this pandemic has been just incredibly difficult and hard on them as well as inmates. And the percentage of the employees that make up the Department of Corrections are oftentimes Black and Brown people. And so I don't think there's anyone that was part of that panel. And quite frankly, that's a leader that is aware of what has been happening, that does not care deeply about getting this ombudsman office set up as quickly as possible, because we just have not seen the level of responsiveness to this issue that we would have liked to see. So that's my piece.
Hear you. Appreciate that. And just know we are still committed, because I remember when we had to learn about the search and the searching of the family, searching of the kids, the tampons and all of that was going on, and we just weren't able to get the answers that we needed, and that was just a couple of years ago. So appreciate your continued work on that, and shout out to Chairman Hope for always working on the reform issues that we need. So anywho though, okay. So I guess the next big thing, so y'all can stay up out my text messages, let's talk about the bill that will be potentially legalizing marijuana. And Delegate Aird, you serve on the subcommittee that had a crack at this first. And so tell us about that experience and give us a little bit about where we are in the process.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I actually wish I had my notes. If you all could see, as a matter of fact, you know what? I don't have my notes, but I do. Don't worry about that. I do have this humongous binder that has all 510 pages of the marijuana bill in it, along with notes and resources. And you want to know what I did this weekend? You want to know what I did all last week? Every single night, work on this legislation to try and structure it in such a way that we continue to center public health. We continue to center social equity. We continue to center the needs for growth and small business, micro business supports. I could go on and on and on, but there were many, many components to the bill. So I'm going to just touch on a few, because I think that some of it is in the weeds. No? Okay.
So before I roast her, y'all put in the comments as to whether or not puns are allowed on At Ease. And y'all will determine whether or not we take it to her and shut it down, or if we allow such to continue. But for now, I'm going to say it's a warning.
I just had to put in my, one little overused pun. We'll leave it there. I won't do any more. But ultimately, I just want to talk about the social equity piece, because I think oftentimes that's the one part that most people have questions about. And so you'll see in this legislation that we took very seriously how we make sure that with the passage of this legislation, we will still have measures in place that will consider the impact that the war on drugs, the failed war on drugs, has had on Black and Brown people, poor communities, and impoverished communities generally, and communities that have just been over policed for the last few decades. And we have been, and we should thank the patron of the legislation, both Majority Leader Herring and Delegate Don Scott, for their due diligence in crafting, what we had to work with. And ultimately, we tried to put measures in place that not only make sure social equity licensees will be prioritized as we transition into a retail marketplace, but that also we are using the dollars and the revenues that will be produced as a result of the retail marketplace, and ensuring that we're pouring those back into our communities that have been impacted, and both our youth and individuals that have been impacted. So, those parts, I don't know how technical you want me to get, but I think I will leave it there. And I encourage people to ask their questions, because I have a lot of answers if you do have questions. But those broad references, I just thought it's a good place to start.
So I just want to add, because after it went from the ABC and gaming sub that Delegate Aird sits on, it then came to full general laws where I sit. And it was interesting because that binder is what, came our way So when, they adjourned from their meeting, then it was our turn to vote on it. It was a substitute that had just been released during that meeting. So I'm gonna be honest, I did not have a chance to read all 510 pages, so I did have questions. And one of the things that I was really concerned about, and I understand why the specific advisory board was taken out, because when it was originally in there, we thought the ABC was going to be the one that was controlling it. It won't. I get that. But when we're pulling out any advisory boards, I hear loss of resident input. And what's really, really, really important for me is to make sure that residents of impacted communities have voice to the regulatory process, not just the exchange for legislation, because we're only going to legislate so much. A lot of this is going to be in regs. And I would just hate to think that there is someone who does not live in an impacted community making decisions on behalf of them without them being able to check in the whole way through. So that was one thing for me. The other thing is I might have unknowingly stepped into something that was happening behind the scenes, but I want to clarify my good name. And when I raise questions about making sure that medical, just medicinal purposes for marijuana are still available, that is a very personal plea for a family member's lived experience. When we're talking about whether or not someone is able to have the quality of life that they have, whether they're able to live without seizures, whether they're able to just exist and be pain free, whether they're able to calm whatever needs to be calmed in order for them to be good, that is the spirit in which those questions were coming. So I don't know if any assumptions were made. Stay out my text messages because y'all play too much. But y'all should know my heart by now. Like, clearly I was asking because some of those products that are available now are not going to be available at retail stores for just recreational use. So there are differences in that. And then the other piece is just making sure that you know, if you don't speak up at that moment, you don't know when that next moment might be. So the bill then went to courts. I'm not on courts. The bill then went to appropriations. I'm not on appropriations. It's going to come back to the floor. And if them pieces aren't right, I reserve the right to vote on the bill that is before me. And if it's not right, that's what my vote will reflect. And I know Delegate Air feels the same way. But the other piece of that is when we have, and we've talked about the process before, when you have a bill that comes through the House and then it comes through the Senate and they're different, then they go into conference. Those conference committee meetings are behind closed doors. It's not all of us getting back all together like the committee process. And so you got to speak up when you get a chance. And I say that because that is applicable to you as well. We need you all to speak up now. Don't just wait to see the final product and then complain about wasn't there. And then I'm saying, reserve the right, but keep speaking up during this whole process. Stay in touch with your delegate and your senator about what must be in the bill for you. If it's social equity, if it's input from impacted communities, if it's making sure that it's ownership, not just hiring practices for social equity, all of the pieces that we can answer questions on, if you should have them. But we don't want to be what I heard, somebody else say. It's like, we don't want to be social equity in name only. Like, this got to have some substance to it in order for it to be there. But also we got to do something, because if they make a move on the federal level, we don't want the big folks from out of state coming in and eating up our opportunities that we could have. So it's a balancing act, but we got to get it right. So I just, if you have questions, we'll look in the chat. But Delegate Air, what other large pieces of legislation, big hitting bills, are coming through now?
Yes. So I just want to make one more point on what are we supposed to say now? Adult use cannabis.
The weed bill. The weed bill.
I heard what.
Look, I said marijuana. We're supposed to be saying cannabis. Like, what, that bill? What is it? Is it 2312 for the people?
It's adult use of cannabis that we're supposed to be saying.
But it's 2312, right?
Yes, it is.
House Bill 2312.
And so just in terms of what you can expect, I think I just want to opine a bit more on what Delegate Price said, and that what you can expect moving forward is the Appropriations Committee will take up this legislation and address revenue-specific amendments, perhaps, that need to be made, if any, and then the bill will go to the floor. But the point I want to make is that the version coming over from the Senate looks very different than the legislation that we are working from in the House. And so when we talk about the final products, I think if you are an advocate, activist, general citizen that just wants to weigh in, I think it's going to be important to continue to advocate and make the point about the parts of this legislation that mean a lot to you, because the whole part of the conference committee is the negotiation of what stays and what doesn't, what approach we take and what approach we won't. And so just continue to track and monitor this legislation. And again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. I also wanted to touch on the abolishment of the death penalty. I just don't know how we talk about this session and we don't talk about something as major as that. I repeatedly have seen headlines that talked about the fact that Virginia has executed more people, and the significance of that, where we sit right now and we have an opportunity to put an end to this. And so that legislation is making its way over from the Senate. And I just think that is a huge, huge shift in where we have been and where we are going. So I just wanted to drop that really quickly.
Yes, and so we are getting quite a few comments. And so if you are with an organization that is working on any of the bills that we are listing, please go on and drop the link. There are a lot of people, their first question to us is, how do I get involved? And you get involved by not recreating the wheel, not existing on an island and thinking that you're about to hit up ILS and track 400 bills, but really plugging into existing infrastructure and the organizations that have been boots on the ground for a long time. And so if you're with one of those organizations, please drop the link. If you're looking for an organization to join and justice is your thing, or any of the things that we're talking about, or if you don't know where to start and that's your question, please drop that. This is a no judgment zone. In our comments, we will police the hell out of our comments. Like, it is a no judgment zone.
If you ask something really crazy, but for the most part, no judgment.
I mean, I didn't say we were going to answer all the questions. I just don't want people to feel like, if this is your first time watching us, first of all, hello, welcome. But seriously, there are a lot of people, because this is the most accessible session that we've ever had. It's the first time they watch session. They'll have no clue what's going on. And it's hard to like start from the beginning every time that we talk, unless there's a question. If your question is something about how things work or who they should call or whatever, we're here for that. I just don't want people to feel like they have to be on level 10 in order to engage with us. That's not what we are about. We're trying to bring folks with us along this whole process.
Absolutely.
So then next, we want to highlight that the House has a different schedule for this week. Tomorrow, we go in at 4 p.m. And then Wednesday, we go in at 3 p.m. And then Thursday, we go in at 10 a.m. And Friday, we go in at 10 a.m. And that is because Friday is crossover. Friday is the long-awaited day for basically the first half of session to be done. And that means that the House has to complete all of its work on the House bills with the exception of the budget. And the Senate has to complete all of its work on the Senate bills with the exception of the budget. And then they literally cross over. So if you've been following a House bill this whole time, you'll now be watching Senate meetings because they're going to start discussing them. I say now, but at the end of the week. And then if you've been following Senate bills, you're going to start watching House sessions, because in our committee meetings, that's what we'll be taking up. Now, one really cool part about having budget limits, we had a limited number of bills that we, budget limit. I need to internalize that. I do need to internalize it, but bill limits is what I meant. We only could carry 7 in the House. I think it was was it 12 in the Senate? But anyway, one of the benefits to that is you won't see a lot of duplicate bills. So there are new bills coming before us that we've never discussed before. And so the House has a chance to bring up new topics, and the Senate will be as well. So you get to engage with your legislators on new topics.
Absolutely. And I just think it's important, again, I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face, that you follow these bills until they are absolutely all the way through. Bills do catch a fever along the way. Someone might be confused about its intent. the fiscal impacts, any number of reasons. And so just keep track of your legislation. And in the Senate, I'm going to just say this, the Senate is a little different in that
I'm sorry. What is it? I was distracted. It's a what?
Get me to be messy. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say
a little different.
Different kind of body. And so you should make no assumptions about the fate of your bills that you're following and tracking, especially progressive ones in the Senate. And so if there are members on that committee that have shown to be problematic, you should reach out to them in advance and just make sure they have heard from you directly about bills that are of importance to you.
And that is why we're friends, because that was the most diplomatic way I've ever heard that put, and I appreciate you for that. So I am looking and I don't see any questions per se. But keep dropping links, and then also keep coming back if you have questions that you as you're going through and as you're looking at the bills. We'll get those notifications and we'll try and get you directed to the right place. We have committed to Mondays after adjournment through the duration of the session. But should there be something that pops up that it's like, okay, we gotta address this, we will, do this more often. I'm sorry, what now?
We might do a surprise at Eid. Maybe.
Yes, after our nap. But we should definitely try some daytime ones for those that might be putting kitties to bed right now, or whatever. But yeah, so in the absence of questions, that was just gonna be our last thing. What's a question that you wish somebody would ask you, Delegate Eric?
See, all the questions that I wish people would ask me are not politically correct.
Do I touch it or not?
I have a question about, shout out to Alexis Rogers, who was watching the appropriations meeting earlier, and why we randomly heard the Blues Clues song. Do y'all know what the Blues Clues song is? And we were talking about sending a bill with a letter. These are the kind of people that we work with. Someone said we're going to send the bill with a letter, and someone broke out into Blues Clues. So we're human. This is the kind of thing that goes on, and we try and have a good time amongst the chaos and craziness.
But she has a question. Okay, sorry. Okay. And this is why I should put my glasses on. What's the next step on redistricting? Are y'all going to get the extremist member kicked off? Okay. So.
Right in your lane.
Yes. So a bill came before the Voting Rights Subcommittee that I chair on Friday. And that bill is seeking, last Wednesday, Friday.
What about the bill that was on the floor today from Vivian?
That's what I meant. Sorry. When was that?
Today.
No. It must have been like.
Oh, in committee last week.
Okay. So last week. So anyway, and we had discussions about it. So it allows for a member to be voted off of the commission, but it's only through the membership of the commission. And so that passed today with an emergency clause. So as soon as we can get that out, that provision would be there. Now, I was reminded that a bill that some of us were carrying last year did have that provision in it, but the one that ultimately passed did not. So there's that. But what we will also do is put the link for the redistricting commission into the chat to make sure that you all know how to find it, so that you can watch the meeting, so that you can follow the process. I still firmly stand in not seeing, how do I say that responsibly? I think it will be a learning process.
Put into Marcia speak.
No. Let me tell you what I was about to say. Let's roll it back. I do believe that there are pieces of the existence of the commission and the way that it was established that will not be able to be fixed, period. The way that it was established is all of the things that Delegate Aird and I called it up until the day, but it passed, it's there. So what I think you can do is watch it as a learning experience for why it's so important that you know what an amendment does prior to voting on it. So that is my coded way of saying it is exactly what we told you it would be. And the only reason or way that it won't be is through public participation and public engagement. So we do hope that you all will stay attuned to that.
And I think this is important because oftentimes you hear members say, well, don't talk about the fact that you told us so, just fix it. Well, there's only so much that can be fixed. It was our Constitution after all. It is our Constitution after all. But we're not going to rehash all of that. Here nor there, here nor there.
And you know, I do want to just get this out since we obviously, I guess, are moving on. We had not discussed moving on yet. So, one of the things that I think people can learn from is really investigating the sources of information that they trust, and why is it often not Black women. I would like for some to investigate that, because the impact on the communities is often hardest in the communities that we serve. And we often are.
Because today, wait, I just got to pause you real fast because today is fresh in my mind. And I just want to put a small caveat in there and say, but know the Black women, know their hearts, know their body of work, know what they stand for, because we are not a monolith either. So trust Black women
who are doing the work.
Who are doing the work.
Who are doing the work. Thank you for that. And just to remind folks though, that it's like, we were told that we didn't know what we were talking about. We were told that, you know, all of these things. And there are people that are taking the creation of this commission onto the national stage as a model. And I would just say, maybe y'all should see what the maps look like that we get out of this prior to hailing this as some major reform, because the trajectory that we are on right now is an incumbent protection map, which is, again, exactly what we told y'all would get. It's what we said again, what then Delegate Lindsay and I said we would get at the joint reapportionment meeting, when we tried to stop them from allowing incumbent addresses. No. So the map is already starting to be put together through the leadership of incumbents for incumbent protection. And so if the citizens don't even know, and I'm just thinking globally, not specifically right now, but if the citizens don't even know what questions to ask, it was never really balanced to begin with. And so I think we are watching that at play right now. So shout out to the process. I pray that it gets better, but I'm also not going to hear a lot of the complaints, especially when y'all coming to us and asking us to fix it. I'm just like, okay, so when y'all were looking for diversity, y'all were like, okay, Black people, go get your friends. Like, let me tell you, it is not Black people's job.
We never did an unpacking of the amendment passing, and now I just feel like there's so many raw feelings and thoughts that you are just exposing, and I'm just trying not to go there.
So let's just stop and let's just say the global admonition that we are offering is, just because it's a shiny piece of paper doesn't mean that the information is correct. I might write something down on a napkin that is way more accurate because I don't have access to resources that get me the shiniest piece of paper. But we got to stop discounting certain voices and always relying on what has looked familiar and what has looked correct, and just allow for the faces and the people that can bring accurate information to your brain to be a varied body. And that's what
here today and gone tomorrow.
You know. She tells me to stop and keep going, but then she like eggs me on at the same time. But anyway.
Know what that means. Some of you all will get it later. We will leave it right.
Oh, wait, people are saying something. Okay, all right. Hey y'all. Hey. Oh, look at Hampton Rose in here tonight.
For participating with us on Monday.
Yes.
Monday, right here, not the same time, different time every Monday. But always after session, we can guarantee you that. And so just think about some of the fun moments that happened during session, sad moments, questionable moments, and we are going to try and talk about some of those things as we close out these final few weeks. It
She
will.
just said we about to spill the tea.
It is interesting. We are getting ready to see the final fate of a lot of bills that our progressive majorities, a in one body at least,
Which one?
not
I apologize for my seatmate. It is late. We're gonna make sure she gets sustenance and rest because she's spouting out alternative facts now. But I think you were trying to say some of the great pieces of legislation that are coming out.
exactly. But just keep track, keep working. We're in this together, and just thanks for joining us again.
All right, y'all. Talk to you soon. Good night.
Bye.